Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 26th of February, comes to you from North Holland. I'm here seeing some clients today, and I just having a quick look at the markets before I go off to do that. So the dollar index is up slightly this morning, but still bearish short term. Just been languishing really for the last week. Not in a dramatic downtrend, and the medium and long term targets are still up. If we take a look at the euro, we see that the euro is actually uh, just holding its bullish position on that dollar weakness. Against sterling, we're seeing the dollar, sterling looking a bit stronger against the dollar as well. Long term still bearish. And against the euro, we're seeing sterling also just holding a gain this morning. So looking strong there as well. And against the Swiss franc, much the same picture. Um, Against the Aussie dollar, sterling is just falling slightly. So but we're still holding on to a bullish position there. Bitcoin down just under 1% this morning, so their woes continue. Still really bearish below the cloud on all three time frames. The US stock market last night was up a few points, so just holding on to the gains, but it does feel like this rally is just starting to run out of steam a little bit. The Nasdaq 100 also just little changed overnight, and the Russell 2000, the Dow was up 0.25%, and the Russell 2000 index also just a tad higher. But interestingly, we're just seeing we're slowly marching up the hill. No signs yet of a turn in the market. The futures this morning, the S&P future down 0.25%, and the Nasdaq E-mini down nearly 0.5%. So we are just seeing a little bit of a deterioration there. It looks like the markets will open a bit lower. The FTSE 100 index this morning is down just under 1%, and that's just tipping it into bearish territory for the first time in a while. So we are seeing the rally running out of steam in Europe already. The FTSE 250 looking a bit better, still above the cloud on the short-term chart. The DAX actually also is slightly up this morning, so we are seeing it's just holding on, and the CAC 40 is down slightly, down 0.5%. In Tokyo, we're seeing moves lower as well, and the Hang Seng Index also down just under 0.2%. China, which had an amazing day yesterday, is actually down just under 1%, so down 0.2%. So really has held on to the gains quite significantly, and the Indian market down 0.4%. So still just struggling on the short-term chart there. And if we look at the Aussie market, we are up here, sorry, down just under 1%. So quite significant there as well. Brent crude is down this morning 0.17%, and WTI also down 0.5%. So we're seeing bearish moves there. US nat gas is actually looking steady at $2.85. So the trend on the short-term chart is looking quite good there. Gold is sitting in bearish territory on the short-term chart at 12.25. We've got this interesting picture playing out on gold at the moment. We had it before where we have a downside and an upside target, neither of which is activated. So it'll be interesting to see if we move higher and activate this upside target. We did this previously and ended up activating the upside target. So can we do that again? It'll be interesting to see. At the moment, though, gold is looking pretty bullish, medium and long term. Silver is looking a bit weaker this morning as well, and US 10-year yields just sitting steady at 2.66%. German bonds, the bonds themselves looking a little bit better, having moved back above the clouds, so we're bullish on German bond prices at the moment. Taking a look at the US markets, we start with the Dow Jones Index. The big performers here last night were DuPont up 2%. This data all coming from Yahoo Finance. So they've massively underperformed the Dow Jones Index by more than 25% this last year. Caterpillar we're up 2%, and again they've been an underperformer as well, but starting to look more and more bullish here. Defensive stocks looking a bit better. On the downside, we had Walt Disney down 1.4%, and so they're just hitting some resistance here on the cloud. But most of the majors fairly well contained. Looking at the Nasdaq 100, the bellwethers here. If we look at Google, they were down very slightly. Amazon was up very slightly. And Apple were up 0.73%. So just continuing to recover, not yet bullish on that medium-term chart. Facebook was up 1.7%, so a better performance from them. Taking a look at the Aussie market, the performers, Speedcast International was up 13%. Not enough to really change the fortunes on the long-term chart, but starting to look better on the medium term for a recovery here. Just a shortage of targets and that massive underperformance still weighing heavily. And if we look at Eroica Limited, we see here they're looking still pretty bearish despite up 7%. On the downside, we had Afterpay Touch Group down 11%. Their chart looking amazing. So we're seeing this theme again where the worst performers are the best charts and the best performers are the worst charts. It just tends to happen when you have a counter trend day. And Aluma Limited also holding their trend, not quite getting through on the short-term chart. IRES Limited down 6%, so just struggling a little bit there as well. China on the 50 stocks, we see here that we still had rare earth up 9%, not really enough to change the long-term chart, but short-term moving more bullish. And on the downside, we had Goche Yuan Securities down 4%, but chart looking quite good. The Indian market, looking at the Nifty 50, Coal India were the best performer, up 3%, not enough to change the look of that chart at all. And Tata Motors also up, but not enough to change the look of the chart. If we look at the downside, Indiabulls Housing down 2.7%, still bearish. And housing development actually looking better on the charts. We've got some good upside targets here, so that's quite key as well. Moving across to look at Europe, and here we see the live prices coming in from Yahoo Finance. So the best performers this morning in the FTSE 100, there's not many of them, just a handful. Kingfisher up 2.3%. Persimmon came out with results about 13% ahead of last year. Is it enough to turn the medium-term target? Not yet, really. So that's Kingfisher, sorry. Looking at Persimmon, we are still bullish on the medium term, but long term, we've still got work to do to recover, but they're up this morning. Housebuilders up in sympathy, and if we look at the downside, we've got Fresnel down a massive 7%, IAG down 3.5%. So we are seeing some quite big falls here across the board. Taking a look at the FTSE 250, the best performers today, Travis Perkins, Housebuilders, probably going up in sympathy with Housebuilders, looking quite good there. Not yet on the long-term chart though, but we do have some good upside targets here on the medium term. James Fisher and Sons are up 2.6%. And Vivo Energy up 3.2%. So we are seeing some quite good performances, but on the downside, we've got some pretty big fallers here. Babcock down 5%, Meggitt down 4%. So we are just seeing still some fallers across the board. Looking to the European top 50 stocks, this morning we see it's pretty much a sea of red. There's 5 upside stocks. We've got BASF in Germany, they're up. This data again coming from Yahoo Finance. We've got Siemens up as well. Enel in Milan are up some 0.15%. Still looking pretty good on the chart with upside targets, so this one is still bucking the trend. Looking on the downside though, we've got quite a lot of fallers. SocGen down 2.4% this morning. Daimler down 1.4%, and again these live prices coming in from Yahoo Finance. That's it for today. Until tomorrow back in London, happy charting. See you then.